What's up everyone, it's Q from Retro Q Gaming, and I want to make this video kind of as a reminder, because over the last, I'd say maybe 2 weeks, I've been in a lot of discussion about artwork, concept art, music, art direction, and just video quality and animation quality. Just to name a couple of things, but obviously there's a lot more in there as well. But it always comes back to one thing. I'm usually debating with other people about what they think is better looking, what do they think conveys a certain message better, and why. And we all have better back and forths about it and all. And I keep coming back to the same conclusion, at least in my opinion anyway. And that conclusion is that despite several mistakes, be it from like executive level mistakes, development decision mistakes, etc., etc., Square Enix, formerly Squaresoft of course, are generally considered still the master of many of their fields. So despite what you may think about some of their more recent games and possibly some of the decisions they've used to influence their Western development studios, let's put that all aside just for 1 second. Because when people think about Squaresoft and Square Enix and what they're extremely most known for, is obviously people are going to say the Final Fantasy series. But what does the Final Fantasy series entail? Well, obviously there's great gameplay and story and all in there as well, but we're not going to look at that for the moment. What we are going to look at is some of the things that generally get overlooked, but at the same time are absolutely vital. And those main things are, say, art and art direction and just concept artists, anything in the art style of department, as well as music, and more recently, because of the way technology's been going, full motion videos and just FMVs and CGI videos just in general. So, I mean, when you look at it, throughout all these years, let's look at some of Squaresoft and Square Enix's just their most talented concept artists. These are people who are world renowned for their design by so many different places, for so many different works, for so many different reasons. I mean, you've got people like, there'll be plenty of Japanese names in this video, so I may butcher some of them, but you've got people like Akihiko Yoshida, who has, say, Bravely Default under his belt. Many other games as well, of course, but he is still one of the most renowned of the Squaresoft and Square Enix family of concept artists, essentially. You also have, say, you've got people like Tetsuya Nomura, who has his own style, which has been heavily influenced on the actual series, because obviously he's a fairly high-profile person at Square Enix, and he's got a fairly significant chunk of actual work, and most of that is art. Another perfect example is Tetsuya Nomura. He is also basically in charge of the Play Arts Kai section. The Play Arts Kai section is a series of figures and models from Square Enix, but they don't have to be limited to Square Enix brand characters or Square Enix brand franchises. For example, usually what happens with the Play Arts Kai series, I can't remember if it's the Play Arts Kai Play series or the Master series, I don't remember which one, but generally what Nomura himself is tasked with doing is actually to come up with concept art based on whatever character they're given. For example, he's done some for Batman, he's done some for Big Boss, there's too many to count, but it just goes to show that they're not limited to Square Enix things, because the Play Arts Kai series is a highly respectable line, specifically because it comes off his artwork and his direction. So under his influence and his artwork, he creates the design for most of these characters, if not all of them. And because of that, you essentially get a Nomura designed figure of whatever character is in question. And then of course you have all the artwork that's used in his games. You have all the artwork that's used in the likes of, say, Advent Children and The Spirits Within. So it's all very high profile and extremely high quality, and it's recognized and it's world renowned for it. And at the same time, you can take it back. You go to You can go a bit earlier and you can look at Yoshitaka Amano, who is again one of the staples of the Final Fantasy series. A lot of the artwork throughout all the Final Fantasy series, a lot of the earlier character designs and earlier title designs, would be the best way, are Yoshitaka Amano artwork. He has numerous publications based on just his artwork. There's that, I'm actually terrible for not knowing this because I actually own it. But you have his, I think it's like Sky Collection or something like that. It's been about a year since I've even looked at it at this point. But it's a huge collection of hardback books of many, not all because there's just so many of them, but of many of his works. And these are all high profile, of mostly Final Fantasy games, but they're all high profile, highly recognized artwork, and it just goes to show that even after all these years and throughout all the ages across different actual people in the industry, Square Enix are still the masters of some of their crafts. And not only that, but that's the art section taken care of. I mean, when you think of the music, yet another thing that Square Enix, Squaresoft, and Final Fantasy is world renowned for. And of course, when it comes to music and Squaresoft or Square Enix, naturally the first name that's going to come up is Nobuo Uematsu. Again, I apologize if I butchered the name. I don't do Japanese names very well. But he is naturally the first person that comes up. He's the composer of literally almost the entire main series of Final Fantasy. With the exception of Final Fantasy XIII, he's basically done, at least in some part, every score, or he's helped compose every main Final Fantasy game from 1 through 14. Like I said, with the exception of 13, and well, just to clarify, Final Fantasy XIV 1.0, and some of those tracks were reused in 2.0, but still, you get what I'm saying. So he has an almost innumerable amount of wealth under his belt when it comes to, quality of music and diversity, and just his absolute talent. That's the only word I can use. There's no other word that I can use. I still feel that talent isn't even appropriate. There's no word that I'm aware of that is absolutely on his level, just of that. Now, you can have your beefs with whatever. You don't have to be you don't have to be his personal biggest fan or anything, but he is world renowned for his creations and what they do to the games, and what they can evoke at the times when they're done right. Like when you have music from himself during a certain scene and it's tailor made for that scene, it's tailor made to show up in an exact second, and when phase changes and phase transitions are designed to kick in, he does that specifically. And it's again, I've said it so many times, it's world renowned and legendary at this point. And that brings me to the next person I'd like to talk about in the Square Enix music department. And that person, whose name I will probably unfortunately butcher again, is Masayoshi Soken. Now, Soken is a relatively newcomer to the game. He's still been around for over 10 years, developing music for Square Enix, and producing music for Square Enix, I should say. But at the same time, he has nowhere near as the amount of games under his belt, but that's still not to say he doesn't do an excellent job. Many people were very upset when they found out that he was replacing Uematsu when it came to the majority of music as composer for Final Fantasy XIV 2.0 and beyond. Now, like I said, they did reuse some of the older 1.0 songs in 2.0 and beyond, but all the new stuff is generally created by Soken, and you can actually... I don't even know the best way to say it, but when you look at when you hear some of the music, as well as you see the visuals that you're seeing at the time in the game, you don't question it at all. It goes to show that these people are just absolutely phenomenal, absolutely fantastic at what they do. And there's a reason why they're world renowned and highly recognized for their specific talents. And there's the two of those aspects, with the concept art and just the art designs and all that we've looked at already, and all the music side of it now. These are going to meet together to bring in the last part of what Square Enix are still legendary masters of, and that is basically CG movies. So when you take into consideration what Squaresoft and Square Enix did in the CG movie stage, not even including their actual, the Spirits Within or Final Fantasy VII Advent Children, not even including their actual retail release films, but just what they do CG movie wise in their games and in their promotional work is just, it's mind blowing. Because what they do is they combine the legendary talents of these concept artists and the legendary talents of these composers. They put them together because the Square Enix art style is so fantastic. It transfers over so well to high resolution CG videos. And one thing Square Enix is known for is always pushing the envelope graphically. When you could see some of the stuff they done in both game graphics as well as CG movies and just art, it's all there. Again, it's another thing that Square Enix are world renowned for being at the top of the game for. And it really goes to show. And one of the things I want to use as a perfect example for this is if you play Final Fantasy XIV, you've already seen this. If you played 1.0, you may have seen it. If you played 2.0 or beyond, you have most likely definitely seen this. So I'm going to have a link to it in the description below, simply because it won't do it justice on here. I don't feel like fitting it into the video is fair. So I will put a link to it in the description. I implore you with absolutely everything. If you're a Square Enix fan, if you're a fan of any of, say, just Square Enix art, Square Enix music, or Square Enix CG video, or a combination of all of that, or if you're just genuinely a fan of that type and style of music, or that type of style of art, or the type of style of, say, high quality art driven CG visuals, I also definitely implore you to check it out. Blizzard are a very good example. I'm a big fan of Blizzard's CG work, as well as their music isn't as great, but their CG work and their art design is fantastic. But it's not a patch on this video that Square Enix have done. Now, this video was originally about 4 years old. Is it 4 years old? No, I think it's 2012. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's 2012. But this video, it actually played when the servers officially went down for the end of, it's called the end of an era. So when in Final Fantasy XIV, when the servers were first turned off during the 1.0 series, if you were logged in at the time they were turned off, this is what played. It was to signify the closing and the end of the story, and it sets up the break between 1.0 and 2.0. So because of that, Square Enix went all out. They got their art team. They got their music team. They got the legendary CG visuals that Square Enix are known for. They put it all together and they went balls to the wall. And the only word I can use to describe this video, well, if I was to use one word to describe this video, is, we're not going to include the word absolutely here, but it's absolutely magnificent. The only word I can think of to describe it is magnificent. It's unbelievable. It still remains to this day one of the most impressive, if not the most impressive CG video that I've ever seen, for multiple reasons. One, it's what's conveyed in the video. Two, it's the art. We all know the art transfers over extremely well in the type of Square Enix. Three, just the CG quality visuals again. And four, the music. Because all of those put together become this brand new thing, and it's just, again, it's just magnificent. It's the only word I can use. So I do highly implore you to watch this video. Set it to your, if you have a 1080p or above screen, set it to the highest quality setting you can use. Turn your speakers way up, and just enjoy, and you will see what I mean. And Square Enix might get, like I said, they may get a lot of crap for some of the other stuff they do in the industry, or some of the other executive decisions they make, but there's no denying it that they are still the absolute masters of some of their fields. And just as a kind of a wrap up example again, is I remember back in the day during the PS2 generation, Final Fantasy XII was still, Final Fantasy XII was announced at the time, but they hadn't shown off much about it. It was about, I don't know, maybe even less than halfway through the development time, and this specific scene in question hadn't even been shown off publicly. So the main thing was there's a huge wedding scene in Final Fantasy XII. I think it's the opening, actually. I think it's right at the start, but it's a huge Square Enix quality FMV, as you'd expect. And I remember, I'll just straight out say it because we've probably all done it, I remember downloading a leaked version of that specific video from a file sharing site. Yeah, big deal, whatever. But I remember being blown away by that at the time, just because of what it was, with the quality in the music, the quality in the video, the quality in the art. It was all there, and it just goes to show it's been there throughout the ages. And that was over 10 years ago, I'd say at this point. It's about 10 years ago. So yeah, just it really goes to show that kind of stuff, history repeats itself, and Square Enix haven't fallen off, haven't missed a beat. So let me know in the comment section below if you agree or disagree with any of the things I've said in this video. If you think somewhere else does better music, somewhere else does better CG visuals, or somewhere else does better art, or a combination of any of that. Let me know. I'm definitely interested in having a dialogue about this kind of thing. Also, let me know what you think of the end of an era video as well, because like I said, it is absolutely magnificent and definitely one of, if not the best CG visual I've ever seen. And I'd like to hear other people's opinion on it. So let me know all that in the comment section below. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. You can follow me on Twitter, details in the description below, as well as the link for the end of an era video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the rest of the videos in my channel.